The Red Gold and Bold podcast is off and running here on an election day. Normally we go Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. However, we're coming to you early today so that everybody can vote. Everybody can enjoy their election coverage, whatever it might be. But we are talking about the Chiefs winning their 8th consecutive game today. What's your biggest takeaway from this win? What's your level of concern for Patrick Mahomes and his ankle injury? Should we have any more questions about how Hopkins fits into this offense after a couple of touchdowns? Andy Reid admitted he didn't call enough runs in the first half. Is the run game still the most valuable part of the offense? Did the Bucs expose some flaws in the Chiefs' elite defense? I hear the sarcasm there in Jeff Chadiha's writing.
I wrote that one.
Should the Bucs have gone for 2 after scoring the game-tying touchdown? Is it time to accept that the Chiefs aren't going to blow teams out on a regular basis anymore? Do the Chiefs make any more moves before the trade deadline? Again, we're coming to you live here at 10:15 a.m. It might be after the deadline when you hear it. We're talking about it all right here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is the sports columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by David Starnes Allstate Insurance, covering all the important things in your world: home, business, life, and even the fun stuff as well. Motorcycle, boat, ATV, you name it. Get with Dave and he'll have you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call, visit them online, or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave. He'll give you peace of mind today for the things in your life most important to you. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. We are off and running. The Chiefs win again. It takes overtime, and they did not cover the number for those that are interested in those types of things. Jeff, let's start with you. It wasn't maybe the prettiest win. It wasn't by as much as some of us, myself, thought it was going to be, but it is a win. What's your biggest takeaway from this win?
It's still hard for me to get a read on who the Chiefs are. Like, the win is big. Any win in the league is good. But I often come away trying to figure out how good can this team be and how bad can they be? And I think last night you saw a little bit of both, where you saw the dominance of the run game. You saw what DeAndre Hopkins can clearly bring to this offense, how Travis Kelce can benefit from that. You saw Mahomes' toughness. We've seen that, plenty of times. But then they just faded away for offensively for periods of time. And they had some moments where you're like, what's up with the play calling? And part of me thinks Andy wants to have Hopkins and Kelce and Worthy do all these great things. And I think it's like last year. I think it's going to come down to the run game. It's going to come down to Hopkins being Rashee Rice and Kelce being what he can be, and Mahomes making great plays with the defense, providing good plays. But yeah, I thought that was not the game I expected to watch last night. And I think that made me think, okay, where is this team going to be in January?
Yeah. What's your biggest takeaway, Sam?
Well, I mean, the Chiefs made a lot of mistakes that I think in past years would cost them games. I mean, Kelce fumbled before the half. That's at least 3 points. It's inexplicable that Xavier Worthy could not get his feet down. I mean, he catches it in his gut instead of catching it with his hands. That literally cost them 7 points. And they still come out with a win against a team who I think is pretty good. I think the Bucs are underrated. They would be rated underrated even if they had their wide receivers. But Baker Mayfield's still playing really good football. Having said that, everything we're going to recap is going to be overshadowed by the main headline, which is going to be the first item on our list, is that Patrick Mahomes is not injured. We're not talking about what are they going to do without Patrick Mahomes. Like, that's going to overshadow everything. I am just going to throw in one note because I think it's going to be my only opportunity to throw it in during the podcast. Rashad White scoring last night's a really cool story. I
Okay.
mean, a center high school graduate, grew up 10 miles from Arrowhead Stadium, could never afford to go to a game. So the first time a Chiefs fan growing up, loved Jamal Charles. The first time he ever goes to Arrowhead Stadium is in uniform last night, scores a touchdown. Had 0 D1 offers coming out of high school, went to D2 Nebraska Kearney, couldn't even play there. So he has to transfer to a JUCO school. Basically, he's moving from place to place. I mean, it's tough for him to afford to eat in California. His family doesn't send him a ton of money because they can't afford it. And here he is playing in the NFL at Arrowhead Stadium and scores a touchdown. So that was the coolest thing I saw last night by a long shot.
Okay, I think you're absolutely right. It was fantastic to see the local kid score in his hometown. My biggest takeaway was that the Chiefs just keep finding ways to win. I agree with everything that was said. I think Jeff is right. I think there was maybe they were going for style points that Andy Reid got away. Like what I wanted to see them throttle the Bucs. I think they looked at the Bucs defense on tape and said, "We got these guys. Let's run it up. Let's get there." I think there was an element of, "Hey, yeah, we'll pound away with the rock and then let the fireworks begin." But I think what was clear was they got back to business, right? Like he did go back to the running game. They did pound the rock. The defense maybe didn't have its best day, but the offense outscored the Bucs. I mean, it wasn't a thing of beauty, but I do come back to the fact that I think coming off the Raiders, looking ahead to the Broncos, I know this team's probably better than both those teams, even though the Broncos have the better record right now. I think the Bucs are the better team, but they know the key is winning in conference. The key is winning in division. And I think there was maybe a mild letdown, although I think the being undefeated, I'm a big believer in you fight hard to not lose that mark. And I think that was part of what helped them was that they fought hard to stay undefeated. I think they found a way to win. And, you are what your record says you are. And at 2-0, 3-0, the Saints at 2-0 were a fraud. They were the highest scoring team. They were undefeated. People got excited, thought that maybe they would turn the corner. They weren't. So I don't think just because you win a game or even a couple, and maybe it's 3 or 4, maybe it's 8. Jeff, maybe you want to shut me down on this. I don't think you win 8 games in a row without being really, really good. And I know you agree with that they are a very good team. You're not saying that at all. But I do think now we're at a pronounced point where to Sam's the point that Sam made that you have these mistakes, all the ones that Sam was talking about from Xavier Worthy and Travis Kelce, you should get caught. It should net you a loss. And none of the mistakes have netted them a loss. Yeah. They're winning. They find ways to win. And it's not pretty, but it's old school. And in today's NFL, it's really, really effective. So I think the bottom line is that they found a way to win, even when they got off track on what they needed to do, Jeff.
Well, and that's the point I'm making. It's like, and maybe you can look at the Ravens game and say this, the Falcons game and say this. I don't think I've seen them play a team at their best. And so that's why I'm saying it's hard to get a grasp on what they really are. I mean, even last night, like if Mike Evans or Chris Godwin are playing that game, well, Godwin's out. If Mike Evans is even playing that game, are we having a different conversation? Or Jalen McMillan? And not to say the Chiefs wouldn't have won the game. What I'm saying is, yeah, they found ways to win. But to me, it was a better indication of, wow, when they're playing a team that has a good offensive line or has a good scheme or has a quarterback who can move around a little bit, there could be problems here. And I don't think I was saying that. I thought they would walk through the Buccaneers, given what the Buccaneers had going into this game. And so for it to be tight, again, tells me that, and again, they're a really good team. Do I think that they are going to go undefeated? No. Do I think they could lose to other really good teams? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else you want to add, Sam, to kind of sum up what this game, the takeaway is? Did anything on Patrick Mahomes? I love your point about Patrick Mahomes isn't hurt, because I think I had texts coming from friends, that were complaining about things. I said, well, it doesn't matter now, because they assumed, okay, he's done for the year. The season's over, there for about 5-10 minutes, people are ready to pack it in. I think that's a huge point. But from, just finding a way to win, the resiliency of this team, I think we could have to say that if they're not the best team, they're the most resilient team in the NFL right now.
Yeah, and I do think that's I think there's a luck factor that goes into that. And I think a lot of the analytics would show that is a major luck component. But I think the reason the Chiefs find themselves on the right end of that so frequently is, one, they're well prepared at end of games. but they have just many different ways to shut down the game. I mean, their defense can win a game, even though they didn't come through last night. Their offense can win a game, which they did come through last night. And, I've said this before, but Harrison Butker is as good a kicker as there is in the league. Like, they have multiple ways to win in the final minute of a game in ways that other teams don't. And that's the difference between the Chiefs now and the first half of the era of the Patrick Mahomes era.
Yeah, he's not hurt seriously, but he is hurt. We want to get more into the injury to Patrick Mahomes, who are always brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete and David Starnes Allstate Insurance. David Starnes Allstate Insurance, serving the Kansas City area and all throughout the Midwest. With David Starnes Allstate, it's not just about fender benders. Beyond traditional safeguards, enjoy perks like roadside assistance for unexpected breakdowns, transportation expense coverage when your car is in the shop, auto replacement protection to keep you on the road in style, and much more. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized, full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems? They've been making them disappear in KC since 1994. Don't risk accidents and liability in your parking lot. Get your lot restriped today. A brightly striped lot will cut down on accidents and keep your lot as safe as possible. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. All right, Sam, let's talk about the ankle injury to Patrick Mahomes. I think we all saw him twisted a couple of weeks ago, and it's like, oh, he's fine. He clearly wasn't fine. He wasn't 100%. That was a normal football play that shouldn't have resulted in him getting to the injury tent. How concerned should fans be with the fact that he left the field, even for a short time, and that this is something that's going to linger?
Yeah, the mowers are back, huh, Jeff?
Yeah, that's right.
Look, I mean, the injury, it's a really tough transition. But the injury is
good. I have confidence in this.
I mean, what was different to me with the injury last night is that Patrick Mahomes was the one nervous. Like, there's been past times where we've seen him get hurt. We saw him get hurt against the Jaguars in the playoffs and did not even want to come out of the game. Gets into an argument with Andy Reid about going to take x-rays. He's hopping on one foot to do handoffs. Remember when he got hurt against the Broncos and the dislocated kneecap, and he's just sitting there calm as can be, calm look on his face, like, no big deal, it is what it is situation. Like, last night, he was the person who was concerned. And Vahe Gregorian for the Star asked him a great question about non-contact. And yeah, that's why he was concerned. Those other plays I mentioned, he gets hurt. That explains the pain. He felt a sharp pain in his ankle and didn't know why because there was no contact. So he's fearing the worst in that situation. And I haven't seen that look on his face as he was going off the field last night before. And to where a lot of us in the press box thought, this doesn't look good. And so for a moment, you got this glimpse of a lost season. And then 5 minutes later, you're back talking about the undefeated season, the team that hasn't lost. And so it was just a really stark contrast. But like I said, it stuck out. We've seen this guy hurt before. Jeff's right. His toughness has stood out before. But I don't know that we've seen him quite that concerned at that level before.
Yeah, Quinn says, agree, Sam. I thought it looked bad. You can tell by the look on his face. I agree. He looked scared. Steven says the difference between being 24 and 29, your body acts different. And Tommy says he's got Gumby ligaments. Yeah, it is amazing how he goes through this. But, Jeff, it lingers on, right? Like, yeah. We saw him limp all the way to a championship 2 years ago, but it's not plan A. It's not what you want. And they've got so many other injuries right now. And they've got questions. Like, he is making up for the question at left tackle and at times right tackle because of his elusiveness. If that's gone, is that the death knell? Is that an injury too far? Not even taking him off the field, just taking away his mobility.
I think it's a huge, huge question. And I thought, Sam was there for the Andy Reid's press conference, and I thought the way Andy Reid talked about it was revealing in some ways, because he said, yeah, he's a tough guy. He didn't want to come out, but let's see where he's at tomorrow. Let's see how he's feeling then, because the adrenaline, all that kicks in during the game. But then, yeah, it's like the next day, something's obviously wrong with his ankle. And
Right.
it's bad enough that he's running down the field, and it didn't look like a regular ankle sprain where the ankle moves one way or the other. I thought he blew his Achilles out. I think most people in the press box thought that too,
Yeah,
the
that's
way
what
it
I thought
happened.
too. Yeah.
And so I'm curious to see what's happening. It's not great timing with the Broncos coming in a physical team, with the Bills coming up next week. But I do agree that sometimes, I mean, he's a tough guy. There's no question about it. He's probably the toughest quarterback in the NFL, one of the toughest players overall. But this type of injury with the way they're playing and the way they have to play with the offensive line is a factor. I mean, he was sacked 4 times last night, and there was one play after he was hurt. He just kind of threw the ball out of bounds with his left hand because he knew I can't really do something here. If his safety is compromised, yeah, it's a significant injury.
Yeah, well, it's something to watch and keep an eye on very closely.
Well, let me just add some context to it because we have seen him with an injured ankle specifically before. So Adam Teich for ESPN asked him last night how this compared, and he said this does not feel as bad as that one did. And I don't think his mobility looked as bad as it did on that high ankle sprain. I do think a lot of what he was feeling was fear. Having said that, like Jeff's right. I mean, it is an injury. It's not nothing. But the play that stuck out to me actually was when he
and
Hopkins.
It's not going away with a bye week. There's not like a rest like that.
Yes.
Bye week's in the rearview mirror, and that's where they got a big game coming up with the Bills. They got a divisional game with the Broncos, who have a winning record. I mean, there's no time for the rest, for the weary, right? That's not going to happen.
And it was heavily taped during practice last week. Like, this was a thing that we didn't talk about because he didn't talk about it, but this was a thing going into the week. So this is a re-injury of an ankle, and that's always, I think, a more concerning situation than a first-time thing. I will say, because people have talked about his ligaments, like, he practices this flexibility stuff. That is a significant part of his day-to-day training, and I don't know that the study shows exactly what effect that has, but it's hard not to believe it has some effect on some of the stuff he's able to withstand.
Yeah, no doubt. How about DeAndre Hopkins? Should we have any more questions about how he's going to fit into this offense, Jeff?
Not right now. Not after yesterday's game. I mean, I thought that's what it should look like when it's going right for him. And look, he's huge in the red zone. There's no question about that. I think he's huge for Travis Kelce in terms of opening up the field. My belief is that this whole idea about Xavier Worthy being a reliable deep threat needs to go out the window for right now because he's not. And so most of this team's offense should be move the change, run the football, play through 2 or 3 guys. And Hopkins is a big part of that. Now, again, the caveat I have here is that, and I know Andy Reid is very hard for him not to play with all his toys. Hopkins started out hot, and then he disappeared. And then they went back to him. Like, you can't get so consumed with all these personnel packages and all these different things you want to do and throw him the football. He's your playmaker. And don't make it complicated because they were rolling, and then it was 14-10 Bucs. And that's precisely because of how Andy was calling that game.
Yeah. 8 for 86, 2 touchdowns, Sam. We say Rashee Rice? He's replaced that production level. What do you think about how he fits in now? How would you describe it?
Well, to me, it's not just about the numbers. It's about how he got them. I mean, this fit stuff is a real thing. And we saw the Chiefs adjust to him last night. I mean, there's 2 plays in particular that stand out to me with DeAndre Hopkins last night. The slant play that I mentioned earlier for a touchdown in the fourth quarter, that's a play where Patrick Mahomes sees pre-snap. They've got trips bunched to the right. There's a lot of attention on the right. There's a single safety that's going to his right side. So he just looks over pre-snap and says, DeAndre Hopkins has one-on-one coverage to the left. And if you actually look at the cornerback, a young cornerback, Josh Hayes, he is defending DeAndre Hopkins to say, you have to go this route to the sideline. I am not letting you inside on this play. Patrick Mahomes can see that, and he still looks over and decides he's going to win. I don't know how he's going to win one-on-one, but he's going to win one-on-one here, and that's where I'm going. I can't remember the last receiver Patrick Mahomes had in which that was true. Yeah. The second play that stands out to me is that 35-yard catch. Now, that ball floats on Patrick Mahomes unintentionally. He's trying to get less air under the ball, but he gets hit. But the fact he threw that pass into what ended up being triple coverage and double coverage at the time, Next Gen Stats had that as the least probable Patrick Mahomes completion since 2018. Like, and to me, it's the fact that he even had the guts to throw it. So both of those things I look at with the same thing, which is trust. He trusted that DeAndre Hopkins was going to win one-on-one. He trusted that DeAndre Hopkins might go up and make a play. The Chiefs' second contested catch by a wide receiver all season. By the way, Hopkins had 2 last night. He doubled the Chiefs' total in the first 7 weeks. So it is different. Like, this fit thing is real. It's just the fact that they're willing to adjust to his fit. And that was the intriguing question, I think, to all of us. Would the Chiefs mentally adjust? And so that's why it's not just a Hopkins story to me. It's a Chiefs story. It's a Patrick Mahomes story as well.
I had a room full of people going, is that a contested catch, Sam? When the ball
was, yes. But he had 2. He had 2 of them.
Are you happy, Sam? Was what I heard from the back row in my area when we were watching the game. I don't know why. Like, you became the villain, and I'm like, wait, hey, hold on.
Why? All I did was point this out. All I did was point out that they don't do this, and this guy does.
Yeah, and they shouldn't do that one very often. That's not going to always be completed. More often than not, that's probably going to be picked off. But it was a great play.
No, but what a remarkable contrast in Xavier Worthy not being able to get his feet down in bounds on a ball that he's wide open, that he has all day to do. And then DeAndre Hopkins doing all the little things to catch the ball contested. It's a lot of growing. Like, we thought DeAndre Hopkins comes in, Travis Kelce gets going. Oh boy, here comes Xavier Worthy. 2 targets, 0 catches, right? Like, that stands out. DeAndre Hopkins, thank God he's here, because how would it look in this game without him? Right? Like, And I think it's one of the things when you talk about injuries, scary if he's not there, right? Scary if they lose just one piece of it. It could be an issue for them. We're brought to you here on the Red, Gold, and Bold by our friends at Key Cannabis.
Unlock a premium dispensary experience at Key Cannabis. Visit any one of our 12 Key Cannabis locations across Missouri for a huge selection of cannabis products and expert recommendations from Missouri's friendliest bud tenders. Quick service, convenient online ordering, drive-through pickup, and a fantastic loyalty program. Plus, Key Cannabis offers discounts for veterans, med patients, cannabis industry professionals, seniors, first responders, and students. Visit us in KC North, South KC, and Belton. Open 7 days a week, or shop online at keycannabis.com. Key Cannabis, open for premium cannabis experiences.
Jeff, we get 27 carries from Kareem Hunt, 1 catch, 28 total touches, 27 carries for 106 yards. And after the game, Andy Reid said he got away from the run. How many do you want? 40? And he did. We know he drifted away. We talked about that earlier, but is reality that they are handcuffed to the run. They have to run to be effective.
Yeah, I mean, they don't want to do this, but this is a team that is going to win primarily by controlling the clock. And they had the ball for 40 minutes like yesterday. The Bucs had it for 25. Against the Raiders did the same thing. Against the Saints did the same thing. It's okay to win the time of possession, but to dominate it and win that way. And so Kareem Hunt's a big part of that. And you saw that game swung on that decision to run the football more in the second half. And again, ton of respect for Andy Reid and his career and what this offense has been with Mahomes. But it was so apparent that in the Raiders game, there was, hey, we want to throw the football a little bit more now. We got D-Hop. This game was the same way. Let's get Hardman going on in reverse. Let's throw it to Justin Watson. And I think when they get away from their primary playmakers, they tend to have more lulls because of that. And I never saw Kareem Hunt being a 27 carry back when he showed up here. But my God, he had a day yesterday. And a lot of that's the offensive line, the blocking he got. But the way he took over that game in the second half, I don't know if you're Andy Reid, how you could not look at that and say, this helps my team be a better team. Helps my defense, helps my quarterback, helps my tight end, helps all these things that we want to get going.
Sam Terry says, Marty Ball 2.0. Yeah, there's an element of that. Tyler said, good Lord, can someone give Hunt a breather? At least they're helping him up more in this game. That was one of my things. Like, how many times he sat there like, can I get a hand up after pounding away? I honestly think somebody brought that up like in the film room and said, could somebody give this man a hand up? And there was a concentrated effort to do that, but not a concentrated effort to share the workload. I mean, again, I know Isaiah Pacheco's coming back, but I think you would like to, if we're going to sit here and say the run game is the most important part, wouldn't you like to have the 1-2 punch? Don't you get even better if you have Hunt and Pacheco? I do still think the workload is a strong talking point here.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff mentioned getting their playmakers involved. Their playmakers are Joe Tooney, Creed Humphrey, and Trey Smith. And
Yeah.
the first 6 drives of the game, Kareem Hunt had 7 carries combined. On the 7th drive of the game, he had 7. On the 8th drive of the game, he had 7. Drives 7 and 8 were touchdown drives. The Chiefs' running game is their bread and butter. And to Jeff's point, I totally thought that Andy Reid had decided last night, based on the Raiders game, that, hey, the passing game's back. Let's go back to it being a pass-first team. And in second half, to his credit, he made the adjustment in game. There's the narrative that Andy Reid does not adjust in game. I mean, last night's game is the perfect example of why that's wrong, because he saw not only were they were running a lot outside the tackles. And what they did in the second half was just say, we're going back to just running inside zone over and over and over again. And the Bucs couldn't defend it. And look, that should have been their game plan coming in, because the Bucs allowed 5.2 yards per carry, the highest rate in the NFL coming into the game. It was baffling that was not a more significant part of their game plan in the first half. But like I said, I do credit the fact that they recognized that, made the adjustment in game. But that's absolutely where the game shifted, is when they determined the running game was going to be their primary way of trying to get the ball down the field.
Yeah, no doubt. They are a ground and pound team at heart right now. They need to embrace that. We'll see how they do it. I'd like to see them spread the football around defensively. Elite defense. I think after all the other games of this week had played, they'd moved up to number 3. I think in points allowed, they were 5-5 coming in. They give up 24 points in this one. They give up 284 yards. Neither one of those numbers are disastrous, Jeff. But did the Bucs expose some flaws in the Chiefs' defense?
Yeah. I mean, the same flaw has been there for a while. They just were able to look. They ran the ball effectively. They had 95 yards on 19 carries. The reason their yardage was so low is because they only had the ball for 25 minutes. But I thought they had a really good game plan. A lot of misdirection stuff. I thought Baker was really on point. When you come into a game without your top 3 receivers, because McMillan, the rookie, wasn't playing either, that's a huge hindrance. And they got Kate Otten going. They were super creative, and they went after the second cornerback. It became very apparent that they were not going to throw in the direction of Trent McDuffie, and that if Chris Roland-Wallace, Josh Williams were on the field, like, they were going to throw in that direction. And so that is something to keep an eye on. And I thought the pass rush really wasn't significant. Uche has just been here for a week, but they had 2 sacks against a team that didn't have a lot of receivers again, and so. That would concern me defensively. I think it's still a very good defense, but I think you saw some of the flaws in it.
What do you think? Flaws, Sam? Were they exposed? Were they what we already knew, and they were just able to pick at the scab? What did you see?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the type of game plan that the Chiefs defense should expect moving forward, which is, it's not just that they went after the second cornerback, they went after the linebackers. This was the first month season storyline that we had for this defense, was, could their linebackers cover? Nick Bolton gave up 5 receptions last night. Their 3 starting linebackers gave up 8. The Bucs decided coming into the game that they didn't have the receivers. They were going to attack the weaknesses, what they thought were the Chiefs defense, which was linebackers in coverage, and try and go at the number 2 cornerback and the slot cornerback. And like I said, it's the game plan that the Chiefs should anticipate other teams are going to have moving forward.
Yeah, I think so as well. And in reality, just the blowouts aren't going to happen, Jeff. I can get excited and say it's coming, but reality is it's not. That we just need to settle in that it's going to be a fight in every single game.
Except for Carolina. Like, if they can't blow out Carolina, then yeah. But that's the NFL, though. I mean, you have to respect they're undefeated. As you said, they found ways to win games. They've got multiple ways to win games, as Sam said. But I don't think that because they're undefeated, they are head and shoulders above everybody else in the NFL. I think that they're in the same boat as Baltimore and Buffalo and Detroit, Minnesota, Philadelphia, the Bengals. And people laugh when I say this. The Bengals are like 1 game away from being at 500. And so, yeah, I think that every game they play the rest of this year is probably going to be tight except for 1. And they're good at that. But that also means that if you slip up and you make mistakes, like Sam said, you can lose.
I think the other thing is around the league, like Patrick Mahomes makes a big check. Josh Allen makes a big check. Lamar Jackson makes a big check. We had this run where they were all on those first-year contracts, first contracts, and you were able to put more talent around them. All these teams have now had to live with the weight of carrying that contract, so it's harder to put people around them. The Ravens are very dynamic offensively, but their defense sucks, right?
Yep.
Like they've got their shortcomings. The Bills receivers. I mean, I know some guys have done decent work there, but they're not dynamic either. And so they've got their limitations. I think we're seeing that around the league. And I think the other thing, as far as blowing people out, Sam, is blowouts generally come with takeaways, right? The Chiefs are playing good defense, but they continue to really not be able to take it away.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Jeff's point, a couple of sacks. I mean, Baker Mayfield has been sacked 20 times in 8 games coming into this. So 2.5 a game on average. They weren't far away from where, they were average-wise, but the Chiefs are supposed to be elite on the defensive side of the ball. They had 5 sacks. We're thinking they're getting back to being the team that last year was second in the league in sacks. If you don't consistently hit the quarterback, you don't hurry him, it's tough to take the football away. And that's part of what keeps teams in this game is they don't get the short field. They don't get the pick six. That they have to work for everything.
Yeah, it reminds me like 2 weeks ago when the Lions had 42 points against the Titans at one point with like 160 yards of offense. The Chiefs don't have those days, to your point. I mean, they don't get the short fields by neither their special teams or their defense. So they do have to work harder to get down there. They also aren't getting explosive plays. They have to be methodical to get down the field. They have the fewest 10-yard runs in the league. Patrick Mahomes is throwing deep less than ever before. For all that offseason talk, they don't throw the ball 20 yards downfield. So they have to gradually work their way downfield. They're running the ball more. There's fewer possessions in their game than there have been in the past. So it's harder to get to the blowouts. Having said that, to put that into some perspective, it was like the first 3 weeks of the season that 5.5-point favorites in the NFL had a losing record. Not against the spread, a losing record overall. Like the NFL has tightened its parity this season, and 8-0 is 8-0, regardless of how big you're winning. And so I don't think that, and by the way, the Chiefs also have a winning record against the spread this year. So it's not like that they're barely getting by teams that they should be coasting by. They've also had the 6th toughest schedule in the league. Like, this is a product of the NFL, the schedule they're playing. This is not, to me, commentary on the Chiefs, who are 8-0 anyway.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We will talk about whether or not the Bucs did the Chiefs a favor by not going for 2. Remember, you can always support the Red Gold and Bold podcast by supporting our great sponsors like Gann Asphalt and Concrete and David Starnes Allstate Insurance. David Starnes Allstate Insurance. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Covering all the important things in your world: home, business, life, and even the fun stuff, as well as your motorcycle, boat, ATV, and you name it. Get with Dave, and he'll get you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations: North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave today. He'll give you peace of mind for the things in your life most important to you. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. About it, Jeff. Why did the Bucs not go for 2? I mean, how many times do we have to watch this scenario play out and teams go away a loser? What was going on in Todd Bowles' mind?
Apparently the weather. He's watching Al Roker on the sideline or somebody. I don't get it. I don't know how rain can prevent you from saying, you know what, we got the ball at the 2-yard line, we're down 1. Our offense just went down the field 80 yards in 10 plays. If you saw Chris Jones after that game, after that play, that touchdown, and I was at the 1-yard line when they scored, he was so tired walking back to the huddle and get ready to line up. I was like, you got to go for it here. But, they went and kicked the extra point, and you saw what happened after that. You can't give a team that's as accomplished and as proven as the Chiefs time to reset, time to go out and flip a coin and get the ball and think it's going to go in your favor. You were the lesser team. You were undermanned. You were on the road. You had nothing to lose. Go for two.
Yeah. By the way, I do love this from Tyler. Questions that humanity is yet to answer. Who built the pyramids? What happened to Atlantis? Why didn't the Bucs go for two? I think that's fantastic. I mean, well, listen, I did he watch the way the Philadelphia Eagles fans were just relentlessly booing Nick Sirianni because he kept going for two and couldn't even get a play that got him even moving in the right direction? Was that in his mind? Like, well, why not end the game 2 yards versus taking a chance at a coin flip and giving the ball to Patrick Mahomes? What are you thinking?
I do think that perception plays into it, and it absolutely shouldn't. But I do think that outside perception, that the cost of not getting it affects what head coaches do. But I mean, this was as obvious as it gets to me. Just you should go back and watch the coin toss. And when the Chiefs win the coin toss, Baker Mayfield just puts his head back. He knows it's over. He knows the game's over.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was the decision that Todd Bowles made, was let's leave it up to the coin toss, which, by the way, the Chiefs in overtime coin tosses have a pretty strong record. Even when they lose it, the opposing team with Kyle Shanahan screws it up. And so somehow it always seems to work in their favor in overtime, which I'm not saying that should factor into it. But I don't know why with the situation, it's not just like a one-play college situation where, hey, bring your offense onto the field and go for two. You would just run 10 plays for 81 yards against the defense. And I totally agree with Jeff. Even though they got a timeout 2 plays earlier, the defense looked gassed at that moment. The Bucs should have scored on 1st and goal, but Baker Mayfield just missed the pass.
Yep.
And he does blame, he does say the wet conditions, but like wet conditions aren't great to kick in either. It was also a little bit windy out on the field, so it's not like a great kicking environment. But even more alarming than not going for it was when he was asked about it, which was the first question out of the gate, his consideration to going for two, he said very minor. He hardly even considered doing this. He not only made the wrong decision, he hardly even gave it any thought. And I just like, in what year are coaches going to catch up to the obvious? Like, this is not a tough decision.
Yeah, Ronald says the math says 50-50, go for two versus kick. ESPN model said actually kick it. So I would say 50-50. Yeah, those are all based upon thousands of games, not games against Patrick Mahomes in the Kansas.
Well, and yes, I use that. I use those models a lot. So this is going to come across as a little bit hypocritical, but just the fact that the Chiefs defense looked gassed there certainly does not factor into, and I know a lot of people are always focused on what doesn't go into those models, rather than the fact that a lot of plays do go into those models. But they were leaning on the Chiefs defense, especially up front. Like, the Chiefs were creating no pressure on that final drive. And to me, that had to be a major factor in the decision.
Well, and the Bucs defense had been defying gravity all game. This is still a defense that was 27th in the league in scoring and 30th in yards. So, like, how many more times do you want to put that defense on the field and think it's going to be a positive?
Yeah, and he said his defense playing well was part of what factored in. I mean, look, the Chiefs went 12 plays for 70 yards and a touchdown in the second half, 15 plays for 73 yards and a touchdown. Then they had the 3 and out. And then the last drive of the game, I mean, is just one of those, you're trying to milk the clock. I don't consider that to be normal offense, like the Chiefs were clearly going to be running in overtime. So 2 of the 3 drives you had defensively in the second half did not go your way at all.
Yeah. Real quick, Jeff, some chatter about Marcus Lattimore. Did the Chiefs do anything else here before the deadline as we tape here at in the 10 o'clock hour? So there's still some time as we're talking about. Did they get anything done?
I think it's a long shot. Just talking to people over there yesterday, I reported on NFL Network that they had reached out to a number of teams about corners after Jalen Watson got hurt. They haven't had a call back in a week, and the budget is a real thing. People think Lattimore, if it happened, would just slide right into their salary cap. Like, they're concerned about that. And what I was told was, 1, the deal has to make sense for us to do it, and 2, we don't know why this is coming out now. We made these calls 2 weeks ago. So I don't think they're going all in like they did for DeAndre Hopkins on this.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I don't think they get anything done. Sam, do you?
I don't, but I do think they'll try throughout the day. I mean, I do think they'll, shop in the same markets that they have been, with like the Josh Uche sort of deals.
We're always brought to you here by our great sponsors, David Starnes Allstate Insurance. Give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. They're online at GannAsphalt.com, and our friends at Key Cannabis. You can unlock a premium dispensary experience at Key Cannabis. Visit any one of their 12 Key Cannabis locations across Missouri for a huge selection of cannabis products. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network and NFL.com, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, I'm Soren Petro saying I hope you get out, vote, let your voice be heard here on Election Day as we tape. We got out of the way today for you to watch some election coverage if you're so inclined. Back at it Friday at 10 a.m. here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.